Welcome to the sixth installment of Theory Chat, an interactive companion to the 2024 book, The Theory Story Reader for Social Studies, published with Teachers College Press. We hope this abbreviated conversation and the ones that are to follow will pique people's interest about how the book approaches, stories, and applies theory to social studies education. If it happens to do so, the volume is available at all major online retailers or by going directly to tcpress.com and searching for the title. Breton and I are also more than happy to answer any questions related to the project, so please feel free to contact us. Today's guest is Dr. Jillian Ford, who will be talking about racial capitalism, which is highlighted in their chapter.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Ford. Would you mind introducing yourself and start by telling us a little bit about how you arrive to or depart from theory in your research or teaching?
Sure. First of all, just thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this project. I think that both of you have brought a lot of innovation, for lack of a better word, but just creativity, I suppose, to the social studies discourse. So I'm always excited to be in conversation with both of you. So yes, I am an associate professor of social studies education at Kennesaw State University, just starting my 15th year, actually, which is wild to say. And my research and teaching and community engagements focuses on youth and teacher activism, resistance, Black educational spaces, and increasingly how humans make sense of the biosphere and how we see ourselves as part of nature. So how did I come to theory? I'll say I really think that bell hooks was my introduction to theory. And I think that when I found bell hooks, what I saw on the page was also what felt so real to me, which was that I was struggling. I think she said, that theory saved her life. And I feel similarly. I was struggling just socially, professionally, um, in a lot of different ways because I was having a lot of difficulty making sense of the world. What I saw was not matching up with what I thought or what I felt. And so walking into theory helped me understand what was behind the material reality of what I was really seeing.
I love that. Yeah. I think a lot of us have felt that way at one point or another, so that's wonderful. So why racial capitalism? How does that theory work for you?
So racial capitalism, first of all, just racial capitalism. Racial capitalism is the idea that capitalism cannot be understood without thinking about the time period that it emerged, which was, the late 15th, 16th century with European exploration and imperialism of the globe. Even though the Spanish and Portuguese really started that exploration and imperialism, colonialism off, it was really when the British came to what would become North America that this huge capitalist project exploded. And so it's not a coincidence that it exploded on the backs of or because of the enslaved labor of Africans who were stolen from Africa, as well as the land that was taken from the indigenous folks here. So I say that it's super intertwined because with capitalism, we need what they call primary primitive accumulation. We need these primary building blocks to start something. You need capital you need capital to build capital. And so when in social studies, we are taught or we teach, or the standards say that the American story is that these founding fathers were so brave and they were really gung-ho about, you know, righteous principles like life and liberty and freedom. um, I think that that that's not the whole story. And we really do a disservice to our students and to the world, quite frankly, by not being more honest about what was really, you know, the impetus for these founding fathers, um, in the work that they did, in the revolutionary work that they did to break away from Britain. You know, some people, while they may have been individually brave or scrappy, or, you know, I'm thinking about the musical Hamilton, or, you know, have all these great characteristics individually. I think we really need to explain, to understand, and then to explain their material and economic um, impetus, which was that they wanted to cut England out of the capital that started being raised by the cash crops of cotton and later tobacco.
Yeah, thank you for that response so much. I love that idea that capital requires capital, right? Such a generative and multiplicative thought for the field of social studies. Thank you so much for sharing that. As the theory reader for the theory story reader for social studies is inspired around Deleuze's suggestion of being on the lookout. What are some ways that theory reveals itself in your own life outside of the classroom or spaces where you conduct research?
It's funny you asked. Thank you for this question. I just last week went to an Atlanta United game. That's our Major League Soccer team. And I usually get this five game package, which is really fun because it's, you know, you sit around the same people each game and you kind of get to know them. And it's a great time. But I was talking with my friend who I brought about how corporate everything has gotten, you know, with professional sports. And so we met up at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I had on my Atlanta United jersey, which doesn't say Atlanta United on the front. It says American Family Insurance. We had I don't know, was it the McDonald's halftime show, some corporation, and it's just so much, as they say, the kind of water that we swim in, that it's easy, ironically, maybe to miss. But so much of our lives are shaped by corporate powers, corporate entities. And it's pretty scary because we know that the purpose of corporations is to accumulate wealth for the few, without regard to the workers who are supplying the labor and living really hard lives, oftentimes not making a living wage. Um, and we know also that corporations have no regard, generally, have no regard for the environment. And so this this world in which we're living it is a really scary time when we think about the wars that are going on, the genocide that's going on right now in Gaza can be very easily traced to racial capitalism. You know, if the United States needs an entity or a geographic entity in the Middle East to secure the oil and the other resources, natural resources that are in the Middle East, which it does, I think, um, that provides justification for the American empire to wage a genocide on brown people, on brown and Muslim people, without regard to their lives. And so, you know, I think that even though my friend Anthony and I were just kind of laughing and chuckling, having fun, like pointing out all the different signs around the stadium, it really has capitalism and therefore racial capitalism really have disastrous effects on us. And just in the same way, that those who profit or those who are um, privileged by any form of oppression are also harmed by it. I think of myself as someone who has been economically privileged, born into a middle class family, always had more than enough resources, um, not having kids, working at a university, I have enough money and I have more than enough money. I have, enough money to go to these expensive soccer games. Um, and so I suppose just always being on the lookout for me is something that is a truth for me, and trying to think about how I can participate and where I can step back and what my participation in this capitalist superstructure really means. I'm very aware that I working at a public university, I have a retirement um, fund. That fund is investing in the market. So I am very overly aware that I'm super complicit and a part of this capitalist machine. And so I think that though that it also helps explain a lot of relationships, personal relationships, and then um, larger sets of relationships in ways that are important. And all kids should know about that. All kids who, grow up to be adults should at least know that those things are at work so that we can make the decisions um, that align. Hopefully we can make the decisions, or we can try to make the decisions, or we can have on our mind the criteria for decisions about how we participate in society, such that we are not at least unknowingly contributing to devastation, ecological and human devastation.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And I really resonated with the soccer example. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Um, I think that'll resonate with a lot of folks as well. Um, and so again, thank you for your wonderful contribution to the project and for being so generous with your time. And I personally feel so privileged to have you as a friend and colleague here at Kennesaw. We hope viewers and listeners today will seek out this book in order to think more about racial capitalism and, importantly, resistance. We strongly encourage everyone to check out Dr. Ford's many articles and book chapters, as well as the 2023 volume, Disrupting Colonial Pedagogies, Theories in Transgression.
Thanks so much.
Thank you
Until we
both.
chat again, take care, everyone.